Hi, everyone, and thank you for tuning in today. My name is Madison, and I'm on the marketing team here at Agile Thought. So here's a little bit about Agile Thought, a custom software development and consulting company that helps Fortune 1000 clients transform, build, and run their digital business. So right now, I am joined by our presenters, Jose Chinchilla, our Director of Data Analytics, and Naga Vallamkondu, a technical architect at Agile Thought. So during this training, Jose and Naga are going to teach you how to get started with Common Data Service and Power BI Dataflows, as well as the benefits of using Power BI to create reports by connecting to data flows using the common data model. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and hand everything off to you, Jose.
All right, thank you, Madison, for that introduction. So like Madison mentioned, today we're gonna do a quick introduction on how to get started with Power BI Dataflows and the common data model. We're gonna do a quick introduction on the history behind the common data model and how it came together. And then we're gonna do a quick demo. Naga, my colleague in the data analytics practice, will show you how to map data entities using Power BI Dataflows and dynamic 365 CRM data. So how the common data model came to be and what it is, right? So let's define that really quick and run through a brief history or a brief background on how we get started. So last year, back in 2019 or 2018, Microsoft announced a partnership between SAP and Adobe. And these are the three major platforms for some of the CRM and ERP systems that are commonly used by enterprise organizations worldwide. They understood that some of their clients have multiple platforms. So there were clients that have SAP, ERP, and CRM systems, along with Microsoft's ERP CRM systems and Adobe's CRM system as well. And they wanted to facilitate the data integration between all these different platforms in a more unified and intuitive user experience. So what they did is they came up with a collaboration called the Open Data Initiative. And the Open Data Initiative is meant to be a platform to be able to see your data across all these different systems. From the Open Data Initiative, the main goal was the ability to integrate all these systems that were considered data silos and bring them all together into a secure store that is managed by the collaboration and be able to have a standardized set of schemas, set of tables, entities, attributes, metadata that allow all these three systems to come together in a more unified way. So for this, Microsoft put together what's called the Common Data Service. And this is just a platform that allows applications like Power BI, Power Apps, Dynamics 365 to be able to come together and leverage the collaborative data model that SAP, Adobe, and Microsoft put together in what's known as the Common Data Model. The Common Data Model, like I mentioned, is a set of entities, attributes, metadata relationships that allow you to model your data and map your data together from these different systems without you having to define your own schema, your own data model, and essentially allow you to jumpstart your efforts into integrating all these platforms. So the Common Data Service, as you see, is part of the Power Platform set of services that allow you to integrate many applications together. Of course, all the Power Platform, including Power BI, Power Apps, Automate, and virtual agents. as well as other specialized data services that may be connected through data connectors or more specialized data connectors. This may include like Salesforce and Marketo, HubSpot, and many other ERP and CRM systems as well as the ability to leverage the common data model through some of the machine learning and artificial intelligence services that Microsoft has made available in the Azure services. So the common data model, like I mentioned, has a pre-built set of entities. Some of them are considered core entities, which you see on the left side of this diagram, including account, activity, contact, currency, email, etc. So these are the core set of entities that are shared across many CRM and ERP systems, including Microsoft, SAP, and Adobe. It also includes some specialized data marts or some specialized models that allow you to quickly be able to import data and be able to view it in Power BI or use it in some Power App, for example. So there, Microsoft and the rest of the partners are working on these specialized data marts, specialized data models around several industries and verticals that allow you to essentially jumpstart a analysis, for example, on services or sales or web traffic analysis, talent management analysis. And one of the most important nowadays with all these COVID-19 related issues are healthcare based models, including some of the risk assessment, patient analysis, etc. So you can quickly jumpstart that analysis by using and leveraging Power BI Dataflows in the common data model. To view a complete list of all the different entities that have been created, along with the different relationships, metadata, and models that are now available, you can use the Visual Entity Navigator, which is made available through GitHub.io, through that link you see on the screen, microsoft.github.io/CDM. And you can navigate and see all the entities, the definitions, metadata, data types, and relationships, for example. It's a very, very nice tool to quickly understand what is available and understand definitions and relationships. So with that said, we're gonna go into a demo mode. So I'm gonna hand it over to my colleague, Naga, who is gonna show you how to map entities using Power BI Dataflows. Naga?
Yes, thank you, Jose. Yeah, so Jose has briefly talked about the introduction of common data models and open data initiative. So today I'll be doing a demo of it and how do we use that concept in the data flows. So basically the reason the data flows have been developed by Microsoft were this major three reasons, the three use cases. One is to self-serviced, data prep, like having this service to act as a self-service tool, and then is basically having the data used for advanced analytics, including machine learning and AI, and then also have the capability of integrating the common data model into the common data flows. So as you can see in the deck here, the Power BI data flows in a traditional way. We used to grab the data directly in the desktop by using a Power Query. We use data connectors, and then we transform the data in Power Queries, and then build in a data set. So the problem here was, once you post a data set, it is very hard. The data set is usually limited to a desktop solution, and reusing the data set used to be a pain. And now with the introduction of common data flows, the Power BI service, the common data flow actually resides in the Power BI service. That way you don't have to use the Power BI desktop to build the data flows. You'll be using the Power BI service, And you can see the Power BI data flows will be created on the Power BI service. And the advantages of it is using the kind of a traditional Power Query approach, including having to deploy the data into Azure Data Lake Gen 2, which is kind of a fast, and have Hadoop as a kind of a background to store this data. And then we can get the data sets out of the Power BI data flow, and then this would be available to all the end users. So as I was talking before, so these were the main use cases. The first one is self-service. So consuming the data through the data desktop, Power BI desktop is basically you have to use the connectors, then transform the data, and then make it available for the end users or in the desktop to be consumed. There's a lot of mappings to be done, a lot of sources to be pulled in, and you can see in my demo like how easy it would be to do that in Power BI data flow. It not only cuts the time but also cost and expertise. So even like a power user and like a kind of a above average end user can do that. But it also gives you the Power Query experience and the data preparation experience that you already have. And the next use case is advanced analytics. As I was talking about, like once you get the data from the common data flow, it is stored in the Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 storage area. So which means now it is available not only to other Azure services like machine learning, Azure Databricks, and Azure Data SQL Server Data Warehouse, but also for all the other data engineers and data scientists in their own custom applications. And the lastly is the common data model, where Jose has talked about, building a common data model, which like as a part of Open Data Initiative, they have done that. So now the data flows is a tool or a mechanism to consume that in the system. That way it can make use of the common data flows that has been created. So the common data models are nothing but the standard entities and contacts. In my demo, you can see how those common data entities can be utilized in the common data flow. So this is a high level diagram which I was talking to you. Is you have this Power BI service where you create a data flow, and then it creates a common data model folder in the Azure Data Lake Storage Engine Gen 2, and then you can see how Azure Data Factory can ingest the data, and then Azure Data, you can prep the data using Azure Databricks, and then get the data into SQL Server Data Warehouse. And also the machine learning language can utilize this data as well as other custom applications. So you can see, like if you're a business analyst, it is very easy and you don't have to do much code. But as you progresses the usage of it, it might involve like a data scientist or engineers to utilize it. And let me walk you through this slide, which is nothing but the open data initiative that Jose was talking about. As you can see, the Microsoft products like Power BI, Dynamics 365, or Office 365, they can all use the common data model and then ingest the data in. And not only that, Adobe or SAP also can map to common data model, and as well as Azure IoT. And then all of them can be utilized by Azure Data Services or the custom applications. With that, I will directly go into the demo. Okay, so to start the demo, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the Power BI services. So I'm logged in here in my Power BI services, and I'm in right now in the workspace called AT Data Analytics Practice. So as you can see, there's a data flows section where you can create multiple data flows. So once you are in this section, you can go click on the create, and there's an option for you to create a data flow. So once you create a data flow, it will give you an option whether you want to create a new entity or import a model. Right now, what we are going to do is we are going to do as a new entity. So we are going to add new entities. So entities are nothing but a set of objects like a table structures. So as you can see, once I do that, once I click add entities, it allows me various types of connections to use. So in this section, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to utilize common data service. I'm going to click on common data service. So in my example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the CRM data and connects to the Dynamics 365. So I have the URL here. So let me paste that URL. And since I'm already signed into the CRM and my Power BI account is already tied to the CRM account, so all I can do is I click next. So what it is going to do is now the common data service is like a Power Platform service which connects the entities to the application that we are. So as you can see in common data service, once I connect, there are two types of you know uh, options available. One is entities and one is system. So we are going to choose entities for building this common data model. So entities, I would tell you, why we are using entities in the, as we go. So right now, for this exercise, I'm going to just choose three entities. One is account, and then let me find the opportunities. Okay, there's opportunity there, and then user, system user. Okay, so I have chose three entities. So entities are kind of a pre-built definitions of the tables, so which has not only the pure system table, but also has additional columns that are brought into the system. So as you can see, I have these three entities that I was able to connect to my CRM dynamics using the common data source and able to pull in all the columns. And now there is as you can see, there's a whole set of transformations you can do, which is nothing but those transformations were available even in the Power Query. So this is not uh, a new GUI to get familiarized with. If you already have a Power Query experience, it is all available here. With the exception, you can see here when I go to the Home tab, we can see there's a called map to standard CDM. So this option is not available for you when you try to do this when you try to connect the data through common data services, and when you go to Power Query, this option is not available to you. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm not going to build a whole set of transformations, but I'm going to show you how to use the common data model. So once I click in, you can see there is a map to standard entities. As Jose was talking you in the last two slides, where you have sets of lot of entities that are available to CRM or ERP or health systems. So since I'm connected to the CRM Dynamics, so all the entities that are mapped to the applications are available here. Okay, so let me choose the account since I'm mapping it to the account. Okay, now I have all the entity attributes on the right side. You can see all these entity attributes are a part of the common data model for the account entity. Now you have an auto map option. The reason I chose entities in the beginning was this: to make my life easier. Is basically now I do is I click on auto map. Now it automatically maps the output columns of the query to the mapped columns of the entities. That way I don't have to do again. So I'm going to click OK. So now what it is going to do is it is going to take the entities that are available in my query, which is nothing but account entity of the CRM, and now maps to the account entity of the common data model. Okay, so I'll be doing the same thing for the rest of those queries. So I'm now in opportunity query, and then once it loads, it will allow me to transform it. So I'm going to do a CDM, map to CDM. So now I'm in opportunity. So since it is a Microsoft product and this common data model is also a Microsoft product, so you can see most of the names are very common, and most of the columns you can see like Microsoft has done a lot, making sure that the entities that we are querying is almost mapped to the common data models, because they know that eventually they want to turn all the entities into the common data model. So now I'm going to click OK. So again, it is going to map column by column, and then I'll be doing the same thing for my other query, which is a system user. So now I am doing a system user. So I'll be doing the same thing, common data model. So I'm mapping. So I'm going to type in the user. So see, as you can see in my query behind the scene in the CRM, the entities are called system user, but in the common data model, it is called user. So that way, if Adobe or SAP or any other system like you want to map it, you can use the common name. So as you can see, the common data model, when I click on the common data models, you saw various entities available to the common data models, which means, so if you have any other type of connector that you are using, basically you can map it to the common data model entities, which means the common data model entities are not only available to Azure or like Microsoft Dynamics or SAP or Adobe, any system we can utilize the common data model as long as you are able to physically map each one of them. So now all of the entities mappings are done, and I'm not doing much transformations other than the mapping. So I'm going to save and close. So it is going to take some time. So what it is going to do is it is going to validate the queries and try to build up all the mappings, and then it will give me an option. Hey, do you want to save this data flow? So once I give the name, then probably it will be available in the data flow section shortly. So we are going to call it as CRM Dynamics 365. Okay, so we know this is connected to CRM Dynamics 365. I'm giving it a common name that we know that we are pulling it from. So now what it's going to do is it gives me an option to refresh now or set a refresh schedule. Right now, I'm not going to do a refresh now, just I want to talk more about this common data. So what it did right now is basically it created these three entities. We created the CRM Dynamics 365 data flows, and behind the scene, there's a structure available for these entities. So let me switch gears and just show you, how to utilize that in the Power BI. And I'll just show you, building a brand new desktop solution. So I'm now in my Power BI desktop. I'm creating a brand new solution. And now I'm going to utilize the get data. So in get data, you can see there's an option for Power BI data flows. You can go to more and it will be available in the Power platforms. Since I'm already logged into my Power BI account, it is going to give me all the data flows that I have access to. So right now I have access to these two data flows. As you can see, my CRM Dynamics 365 data flow is here. So I am choosing all the entities here. Let me choose that. Just taking a while, I believe. Okay, and then I'm going to transform the data. So now I'll be coming to the Power Query portion of my Power BI desktop. So the Power Query is again the same thing that is available. As you can see in the Power Query, I was telling you the Power Query is the same thing, but the CDM option is not available, which means you can't map the common data model in the Power BI desktop, because that is not what you want to do. You want to do it in the data flow. That means you are making it available. So as you can see, none of the tables are being populated because those tables are empty. Because the reason was, I'm going to switch back to my data flows here. The reason I did not have any data is because I did not refresh the data. Okay. Before I go and show you how to refresh the data, I want to talk to you really a little bit more about the incremental data. I know once you refresh the data, how do you maintain that data going forward? So you can do either one of the ways. You can have that refresh schedule once every few hours to refresh all the tables, or if you want, you can do an incremental refresh. For Power BI Pro, you have the capability of refreshing the data on an interval of time, which means it refreshes the entire data set or entire entities. But if you have a Power BI premium license, this option is available to you. I know it gives me an option of on and everything, but once I click save, then it will be prompted to purchase the license for Power BI Premium. But I want to go ahead and show you what can be done in an incremental refresh and how that capability of self-service was. The first self-service was, you are able to connect easily to the entities and then map it very easily. And now this is another very important, settings where you can easily try to do an incremental. You don't have to write complex SSIS packages and all that. So as you can see here, choose a date time field to filter by. There are various columns available. So the most common date time would be is frequently changing whenever you update is modified on. So I'm going to choose that data. And again, so to store the historical data, or you want to archive the data, or you want to see in my data set only the past 5 years or 3 quarters or 5 quarters of the data, you can set all that here. So for right now, I'm going to do, okay, give me the data for the past year, 3 years, which means going forward, it always stores the 3-year incremental period. So basically the fourth year would automatically drop, as the year passes by. And then refresh rows from the past is basically, I know that we are pulling 3 years worth of data. And what is the data you actually want to refresh? I want to refresh the last 3 days of the data. So as you can see, whenever the records are modified within the last 3 days, that is the data I want to refresh, which means if the row has not been touched, for more than 3 days back, so those will not be touched, which means this will be common. That way, you are reducing the time. So that's what I said. Time and cost are very important. And now the time is being reduced in incremental processing. That way you don't have to wait much time and you can enable. So as you see, this brief description on what you're doing above, and that gives you a sense of what you're doing. And now, in some cases like financial data, sometimes you don't want to make changes. You don't want to do anything, but you want to keep all the settings. But you want to trigger this incremental only on if a particular column or some flag is set. Especially, it will be good in financial, where you don't want to refresh the quarter until certain transactions have happened or certain processing of the data has happened. So you can choose those kind of columns, and which means it doesn't trigger unless there is a change. In this case, say for example, say if there's a change in open deals date, then only the whole incremental step would be running. So this just kind of the features available. I'm not going to save it. I'm just going to cancel, but I wanted to quickly show you how to do the incremental refresh. So right now I'm done with my solution here for the data flow, and I'm just going to close. Okay, as you can see, the CRM Dynamics 365 is available, and I was telling you how to refresh the data. So this is the an option which gives you immediately how to refresh now. So you can click on that, but I'm not going to do because we already have similar set of data set that I will walk you on that. That way we don't have to spend time. Also, you can go to the settings, and then basically in the settings you will be able to uh, you know do a schedule refresh on uh, so since I don't have a Power BI premium license, what it is going to do is, so if I say daily on a particular time, then basically it goes and refreshes my entities you know so I can add multiple dates, and then every incremental on that particular timing, it goes and gets the data for the entire entities. Okay, so I'm not going to do that. Let me switch back to the demo piece for the Power BI. So I'm directly going to a solution that I just kind of built briefly on this. As you can see in my query sections, if I'm building a new page, you can see all those three entities are available here, and you can see account, and since it is a big table, it is taking time to drop down the column values. So what I can do is I might be search by full name. Okay, I have my system user, like a full name. And I'm going to grab some opportunities here. So you can see there are a lot of columns available here. So as I was saying, you have a transformation section in the Power Desktop. You can use that to hide and show the columns depending on the solution. But in general, I would recommend leaving all those columns in the data flows, because we don't know, like who else would be using the data flow. So you don't want to restrict all the columns in the data flow itself. You can do it on the Power Query. Now I have that, and then I can convert into a chart, and then try to do some data labels, get some fancy. Okay, so I don't want to take time here, in showing how to build this, but yes, you can see, I have built one with similar capabilities, where you can see I have opportunities like here by customer here, and then by step, which step they are, the opportunities are. You can click on that and basically have the data drilled on, okay. And since you don't have the Power BI Premium, what we have to do is basically you have to do all the connections manually if you are trying to, get the entities up. So let me switch back to the data flows. So this is how you can use a data flow that you created here. And let me go back to my workspace real quick, and I'll show you the data flows that we created. Okay, so you might have a question. Now I created data flow. Now how do I add entities? So basically it is very easy. You can directly click on that data flows, and then you can add more entities. Okay, so let us click add entities here. I'll show you, those options. Okay, so when I click add entities, I know that I've restricted this data flow if you go to the CRM dynamics. Okay, so here is a concept that data flows are not restricted to any particular application. So it is restricted. You can bring in the data from multiple applications. The only thing is right now I did was I just created data flow to have a set of entities. Then I connected my to the common data service and then got in the connected to the Azure data CRM and then bring in the entities. So again, if you want to go back, add entities from that CRM application, you use a common data service and bring in that. But if you think you want to bring in, information from other systems like SharePoint or Excel or SharePoint, SharePoint folder or kind of a SQL Server database or Oracle database, you can do that. But highly encourage not to build a data flows, especially when you are trying to build a data flow with big applications like the dynamic CRM. You don't want to build all the entities in one data flows. You can have multiple data flows. You can have one data flows for say SAP system, one data flow for phone call system, one data flow for HR system, and one data flow for financial system. And behind the scene, if you have Power Entity, Power BI Premium, you can connect those entities manually here. That way the end user doesn't have to do. If you don't have Power BI Premium, the end user, like whoever is the consumer, like a Power BI desktop, they have to create those uh, links manually and do that. So in short, we discussed briefly on how to create a data flows, how the CDM is available in the data flows, make use of common data service to to connect to the data flows, and then have a Power BI solution connect to the data flows. With that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to um, have Madison take over from here. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that, Jose and Naga. So prior to this training, we did receive a few questions about the common data model. And again, if any of our viewers have any questions or are interested about our Power BI Ignite offerings, please go ahead and email them to us at marketing@agilethought.com. So we're going to go ahead and move forward with the first question, which is, why should I use CDM versus my own data model?
That's a good question. So essentially, CDM allows you to jumpstart your mapping and visualization of data, right? You don't have to build what Microsoft and its partners have built. You don't have to build that from scratch. You can leverage the common data model that caters to, I would say, 80% of the use cases and analysis that you might need this data to be integrated through these different entities. So you don't have to build this from scratch. You have a head start by using the common data model, as well as the ability to leverage this common data model with other applications, like we mentioned, the rest of the Power Platform, including Power Apps, and even other services like machine learning, AI, or use those common data model entities in more specialized flows, for example, with Azure Data Factory. So you can leverage this from one single place, and you don't have to build this from scratch.
Okay, great. And another question we received is, are there other vendors like Salesforce using CDM other than Adobe and SAP?
Yeah, so Open Data Initiative that Jose talked about was initiated by Microsoft. SAP and Adobe, but Salesforce kind of have a similar thing that called Customer 360, which they are trying to do that. But that said, the CDM model that we have been discussing not only not only um, Microsoft or Adobe or SAP can utilize various applications, including your native application or Salesforce or HubSpot. All those applications can use this common data models. If you think like common data model entities or entities with a defined data structure, as long as you have entities, you bring in those columns or those entities that matches those entities for common data model, then you will be able to create utilize a CDM model irrespective of what application you might be. You use a different connectors to get the data in, but the common methodology is once you get the data, you use a common data model in the data flow to connect to that entities. Yes.
Mm.
Okay, great. And another question that people have reached out to us about is, what is the difference between Power BI Dataflows and Power Platform Dataflows?
That's a good question. I can take that. So essentially, the Power BI platform, the Power Platform Dataflows is kind of a new feature that Microsoft has added. And the difference between Power BI Dataflows and Power Platform Dataflows is essentially that Power BI Dataflows, like the name implies, are specific only for Power BI. So only Power BI can access that endpoint or that service. While the Power Platform data flows, it can be used by Power BI as well as Power Apps, Automate, Dynamics 365, and some other specialized service for machine learning, AI, including Azure Data Factory. So the Power Platform data flows, I believe that would be the standard going forward, but it's the same similar concept that we just talked about about Power BI data flows. So in essence, it's essentially Microsoft expanding the use case and additional services that can leverage these same data flows. At some point, I believe they're gonna just become the Power Platform data flows, which can be leveraged with Power BI, Power Apps, Automate, and some other services.
And we have time for one more question. So is the CDM limited to CRM data?
No, the CDM is not just limited to CRM. In my demo, I just did CRM, but you can connect to various multiple other application like ERP systems, like Microsoft Dynamics ERP or other kind of systems. So you have a lot of entities that are available. The one we connect the CRM, probably those entities were available, but depending on the application, so those entities would be available as well. So you have some with a health related entities, some with ERP related, some with like Office 365 entity related. So there are a lot of entities available. So Microsoft is kind of as a part of this initiative keeps on adding those entities as they need. So and there will be some changes also to some entities depending on so it is a constantly evolving process.
Okay, great. Thank you both for answering those. And that concludes today's training. So we'd like to thank you all for watching. And if you have any additional questions, please go ahead and send them our way. And we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.